First off, I want to show our watchers and listeners, if you can describe it, Amy's setup right now. Can you just talk about it? Because I love it.
Yeah, well, you're going to post the picture I sent you guys, right?
I will post the picture on our social, yeah.
So because I am moving, I'm actually moving home to Wisconsin. I don't remember if I've mentioned this, in 4 or 5 days. And so I have sold all my furniture and my life is in boxes. And so literally my computer is on top of a box that's on top of my bed. This lamp is on top of a box, and this lamp is over here on a TV tray. So this is jank setup. But
so
we're
if everything
making it work.
comes tumbling down, if everything comes tumbling down, we know why.
It is very precarious. So, yeah.
All right, welcome everybody to Bookstore-Bees. We are back today to talk about the ending to House of Hollow by Krystal Sutherland.
This book.
I didn't lose my page. Nice.
This book was so good.
It was very good.
It was very
It was
good.
hard
And some
to
of
read
our
it.
theories were correct.
Some of our theories were correct, but I was gonna say it was hard to read it over such a long period of time.
Yeah.
Because it would
really
otherwise be
was.
such a quick read.
Mm-hmm. And forcing myself,
And Rose.
forcing myself to not read it.
Nope.
I ended up losing momentum, and it was hard to
Totally.
pick it back up, which is kind of frustrating.
Yeah, I agree. So the pacing on this one, it was our first one. Whatever. We didn't know. So,
Yeah.
but
yeah.
overall, solid story.
Rose, you had mentioned in the Discord that you would finish right before I did or something like that. I don't remember. Or you finished a chapter or something. And you said, hey, some of our theories were correct. So that it was hard for me to keep going. I'm like, which one's it going to be?
Yeah, well, I mentioned it at work too, and you were like, are they vampires? And I was like, I don't know.
I would have been thrilled if that was it, if that were it. So I could have just been like, I fucking knew it. But that was not the case, unfortunately.
Okay.
No, but I think actually what they are, and we're going to get into it obviously, but what they are, I'm pretty sure, Rose, you mentioned that at some point.
I don't even know. I might have.
I think you did. I think you mentioned that word.
I might have.
At some point.
Well, I suppose
I
we're at
read
the
a lot of
end,
books.
so you want to just say it?
They're changelings.
Oh, they're
Yes.
changelings.
I mean, I feel like that's not the most exciting thing that happens in the ending.
Yeah.
It is intriguing, but I don't
No,
think that's
I
the
don't think so
most
either.
intriguing. So, before we jump into the story, those of you that listened to our last podcast will know where we are. Also will know that this is the last part of House of Hollow, and we are going to be moving on to a new book the week after next. Next week, we will be announcing what that book is, but before we can announce it, we have to pick it. So the poll is open on our social media. It's in our link tree. So we need you to place your votes on what our next book is going to be. And I'm super excited. I have been checking the stats for the poll at least once a day to see which one's winning because I'm kind of anxious. But I also want to read the other books that are on it. And if it's not going to be our read, that means I can just read it for me. So I'm also waiting to read books that may not be our book club book, if that makes sense. So far, The City We Became is first. Tied for second is Paris Apartment and If We Were Villains. And then tied for third is Night and Its Moon and Mary Jane.
Okay.
So
It's
So
so
that's
tough.
where we're at.
I want to read.
I want to read them all.
Yeah. All right. So, guys, this book. This book that we finished.
Oh man, this book.
Yeah.
I liked the ending. I kind of wanted more. I don't know. I felt like there was so much build up. We had so many obviously discussions of what we thought it would be. And then it was a little underwhelming. It didn't ruin it for me. As a whole, I really enjoyed the book. But is it a 5-star read for me? No.
What would you say? Like a
Could it have been? Yes.
Yeah, I feel the same. I was
Yeah.
loving it, and the ending wasn't terrible. It was all right. It was a solid story, but the ending could have given more. It would have been a 5-star read if the ending was more. Yeah.
Yes,
'Cause,
exactly.
like, it left me with a lot of
exactly
questions.
my feeling on it.
I know that some authors like to leave readers with questions to, like, keep them thinking even though the book is over. But I hate it. I want to know.
See, I do like endings like that because I like to envision the next part. So I do see them like going back and forth between the worlds and like trying to find Tyler. And I imagine them finding him, but he's just like, he can't come back because he's dead. But I don't know. I saw the whole thing like play out in my mind. So I was like, oh, okay. But I agree with what you're saying about a little underwhelming. I feel like there were so many kind of little breadcrumbs along that we never really got to see come like amount to anything, especially with the threes. And in the beginning, when you're talking about the grandma had the 3 miscarriages, I thought maybe that would be linked.
And like Agnes, like we didn't get more on Agnes either.
Yeah.
Or any other girls that may or may not have gone into the halfway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say is I agree with you, Amy, that I sometimes enjoy an open-ended ending where you can visualize what's happening or possibly have a sequel to it. That part I'm okay with. It's the amount of unanswered questions that I was not okay with. And why it's not a 5-star for me. Just too many questions left. Too many things like why bother writing about all those 3s, for instance, when it's not really a thing.
Didn't. Okay, so maybe this is just because I don't fully understand what a changeling is, but I don't understand how those 3 got there in the in-between, the ones who became the Hollow Sisters. Like where, I know they said they didn't remember a lot of where they had come from and stuff, but I just feel like it would have been interesting to know a little bit more about their initial being, like what they were before they took over the Hollow Sisters.
Yeah, they just said that they were there. They never said how they died or when they died. How long have they been there?
So in most stories, a changeling is a fae child that replaced a human child at birth. So the parents will literally like steal or kidnap the human child and replace it with the fae child.
How come though? Like why?
There's multiple reasons. Like in some stories it's because like the child might be like an heir to a throne or something and they were endangered, or like the fae parents were like murdered or something and they didn't have families, so they were like, instead of them being orphans, they just gave them to a human child, to a human family. Or changelings in like the like folk tale sense are just children that the parents thought were swapped with some monstrous being at birth or at a very young age, which I think is what this story is building off of, because they're obviously not fae and they weren't swapped when they were the same age as the children, like by someone else. They did it to themselves. Yeah. Which I think is where I had issues with this, because I'm used to the other version of changeling, and this is just like a different perception of what a changeling is. In my mind, how they came to be is they were spirits that died that had unfinished business, so they didn't want to pass on, so they were stuck in the halfway. And instead of passing on, Gray came up with this idea where she could trick the people that fumble their way into the halfway and take their bodies, basically. So they're body snatchers, which is weird.
My question is, were they always sisters, though? Like, what are the chances that these 3 girls are going to go into the halfway so that these other monstery girls can take their bodies?
Well, and then I was wondering, how did they get into the halfway to begin with? Did they say that?
Which, to answer your question initially...
Oh, the hollow girls, the actual hollow girls.
The actual hollow girls?
Yeah, because I would imagine that somebody would have brought them in, but did they? I don't remember if they...
Gray called to them, right?
Okay.
Yeah, they talk about how the door is thin, like the veil is thin on New Year's, and then also at like sunrise and sunset. And Gray called to them, and basically they followed her voice into the halfway through that door. And then also to answer your question, Steph, I did tab on 277. So Gray says, I got you out. I gave you the life I promised you I would give you. I have no regrets. I want you to know that. I would do everything I did again, 100 times over. When you are ready to talk to me, I'll be waiting for you because I am your sister in this life and in the last. So I think they were sisters. The 3 of them were sisters in whatever life they had before they became the Hollow Sisters as well. Yeah, that's one of the things that also I wish that we had more. I know it says that they forgot their previous life. I just wish that we knew more about their previous life instead of them just being kind of blank, like very flat characters before that point.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I almost wanted them, because I feel like if anybody knows about their life before, it would have been Gray. And I know that they're mad at Gray and they're not speaking to her by the end of the book. But I kind of wanted, like, maybe some time to pass and them have a sit down or something with her and ask some more questions so that we could know what their life was like.
Yeah.
I think that's what I was missing,
same.
too.
I was also thinking that maybe, like, one of Gray's journals would have an entry or something, and there would be an excerpt that we could read about it, but nope.
Endings are hard.
They are.
They really are, and this happens a lot, and I feel like it happens a lot with mysteries for me especially, where I'm loving the book so much and it just falls with the ending.
Yeah, agreed.
And it's not necessarily the author's fault. I mean, it's just a personal preference for me, I guess, is I just...
Yeah, I want more.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's how I am with books that I like, too. Like, I always want more from books that I enjoy. And because I was enjoying it, I want more. If it was a book that I didn't like as much, I probably would have been like, yeah, that was fine. Cool.
Right, we wouldn't care. We wouldn't care as much. Because we were really invested in these characters. So we obviously just want to know, like, their full stories. Like, give us everything.
I really enjoyed Kate near the end of the book.
Yeah.
You want to elaborate on that?
Yeah.
Why?
Sure.
Why do you love Kate?
Because you don't. I don't love Kate. I had a deeper appreciation for her, I guess, by the end of it. Just the way that she knew these weren't her actual children, and yet she still loved them. Not Gray, but like she was holding on to something, and if it was just that little piece of whatever, the skin of her children, if it was just that little piece of them that she could hold on to, I don't know, there was just something about it that I appreciated.
No, I agree. I was thinking that near the end as well, that she knew that Iris wasn't hers, but Iris was also so young and didn't remember anything before, so she basically just adopted her and loved her like an adopted parent loves their adopted daughter. Like, I really liked Tyler, and I don't know what happened, and he's dead but not, and I am upset. I think that's just where all of my pain is coming from. I ended up really enjoying Tyler, and I liked Rosie, and then cried over Rosie, and he was just this like little sassy twat throughout this whole halfway thing, and then he's dead. But then he shows up, his spirit shows up, but like we don't get any closure, and I need closure for Tyler.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He got done a little dirty.
Yeah, I'm upset.
He did.
And his whole family, and they do the whole funeral thing.
Yeah. That was a bummer for sure.
Mm-hmm.
He was a good one.
But they also turned the funeral thing into like a gray procession.
Yeah, I think that...
with everybody reaching out to her because she was so sad that her
I think that
boyfriend
really
was
tells
dead.
about her personality more than anything else. Because
Oh, yeah.
the other two sisters have the same powers, and they don't use them to the extent that she does. So, like, yes, she said that she's doing everything for her sisters, but you can tell that there's also some selfish reasons in there as well.
She's darker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and she's milking this. Like, she's milking the
Yeah.
death of the boy that she did love. I do believe that she honestly loved him, but she's milking that for everything that she can get personally out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How do we feel about the things that we did predict? Like, for instance, Gabe being the bullhorn man.
You're
You
right.
were right, Amy. You called it.
I enjoyed it. I mean, I don't want to say I enjoyed it because that's kind of a weird thing to enjoy. Like the fact that their dad was hunting them from beyond the grave and then wore the skin of his daughter's lover.
Yeah.
Because that's a little weird.
Weird.
But that was a good spin to the story. And it really shows his dedication
was.
to his original daughters, that he buried them and then like seeked revenge beyond the grave and somehow found out how to travel between the world of the dead and the world of the living to exact that revenge.
Yep.
Which is pretty rad. Like, that's pretty badass. Go Gabe. Like, that's pretty hardcore.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on page 261, he says, "After that thing made me kill myself, I ended up here. I searched for my children. I found them where you left them. I buried them myself."
Yeah.
Yeah. So I did kind of feel like, I don't know, like he didn't really get justice, but
The only justice, and it's not even justice, but the only, I don't even know how to word it, saving grace. I liked the moment where they buried his actual kids' coats with him. And was it Kate or Iris? I think it was Kate, right? That said something like they're together now, or
I believe so. I know that, well, because Iris brought the, like, pieces of their jacket to her. And then I believe that's where they said that.
yeah. And
I also like
I
that
liked that
Iris
part.
was so dedicated to finding the truth, even if it literally put her entire life into question.
yeah.
And she wanted
Mhm.
the truth for the 3 little girls that died so that she could live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Iris was a good one. For sure.
She was. I kind of feel also, I'm not trying to like shit on the ending, I'm really not, but I also feel like I wanted more Vivi in the end.
She kind of disappeared a little.
Mm-hmm.
She really did. After she was kidnapped, she didn't really get any screen
Yeah.
time after that. Nothing major, you know? And she had been such this fun character throughout the book. I mean, we were all loving her and talking about her here on the podcast too, and I don't know. She was rescued and then
Yeah, I think there was a
Nothing.
little bit of her in the end, but definitely not as much as I would have liked.
again, not trying to shit on the book. I'm just
Yeah, like the little
these are the things that if they had happened would have made it a 5-star
like
for
the
me.
little bit in the epilogue where Vivi is being a sarcastic asshole, but Vivi has her spunk back a little bit in those 2 pages, but like that's definitely not enough because I loved her character at the beginning and she was a lot of sass and I really liked her.
I want a book about just Vivi.
I would be down.
Like when she's in Prague, hooking up with all those chicks, being a rock.
Being a bassist and just living life.
I want that book.
I'll read it. I'm down.
Krystal Sutherland, do you hear us? We want Vivi's story. Thank you.
I want Vivi. Please.
Yeah.
And Tyler. But that one, I don't think I'll get that one. So, just Vivi. I'll take Vivi.
I don't think so either.
That's pretty much, I don't know. I felt underwhelmed. I don't have as much to say now.
Mm-hmm. I will say I am intrigued to read more by Krystal Sutherland. This didn't put me off her. Like you mentioned in the beginning, this is a solid 4 for me, which is still really good. I think it was a solid first read for us.
Yeah, I liked the style that it was written in quite a lot. But we've already covered what I didn't like about the ending. Up until the last 3 chapters, I was good. But I need 3 more chapters.
At least it wasn't a complete flop for us, though.
That would have been so disappointing for our first book to be such a shit show.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it definitely was not. Well, I'm excited to see what we've got next. To anyone who's listening and who read with us, let us know what your thoughts were on the book, on the ending, on the story in its entirety. And yeah. Oh, I will say, I just saw this one thing that I marked. I will say that I was kind of close, though. So they weren't vampires. But when Grace said, Ira said, "Why are we always hungry?" And Grace said, "Because you're dead, and the dead are always starving. Food can never sate your hunger, can never fill the emptiness inside you." So I knew that their hunger had to do with the fact that, food wouldn't, do anything for it. Human food wouldn't sate them, but I just was wrong as to why.
Yeah.
I'm kind of glad they weren't vampires.
No. That's fine. Yeah.
Prediction. There's just so many stories about vampires. I think I would have been another one if it turned out to be vampires.
I agree. I just was hoping that it was going to be some sort of like Changeling just didn't quite do it for me. I just was hoping that there was some crazy thing that was going to be oh shit, of course that's what it is.
Yeah. I think it's because I read a lot of fantasy and I like lore that the Changeling was fine for me because I knew what that is and I've read stories about it before, so it was just kind of oh yeah, I guess that kind of makes sense. But yeah.
I kind of wanted them to be the actual Hollow Sisters, though, and that something really traumatic happened to make them into some sort of monster.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was thinking too. Maybe not vampires, but...
Well, I did find some highlights. Since we're so short of time, I'm going to stick with the theme of I really like the imagery in this book. And when they go into the halfway the first time on page 22 and 23, I have a few highlights of the verbiage that she uses. So at the very beginning of 222, for Tyler vomiting, instead of saying he vomited or he fucking upchucked, she wrote, "The contents of his stomach leaking from his mouth and nose in a sour waterfall." I immediately was that's fucking disgusting and gorgeous. What the hell?
Yeah.
Everything about how the halfway was described was disgusting and gorgeous. The entire, what was it, that first, I don't even know, that first chapter when they walked through her and Tyler, and then they just described the halfway. I was
Chapter
oh my
18.
God, so gross.
Yeah, that's where all of this is happening. Because, at the bottom of 222, the smell is described as a slowly rotting canker somewhere between the realms of life and death, a decaying tooth lodged deep at the back of the mouth, a gangrenous limb turned swollen and black from a lack of blood supply, a dying thing, soft and bloated and bleeding, but still attached by thin threads to our living world. That's just absolutely terrible and amazing.
But also, can't you just completely visualize
Totally.
it? It's so
Yep.
vivid in my mind.
I can, yeah, like slipping off a shoe with gangrene and the like gross, disgusting smelling slime. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, she just uses really descriptive and uniquely descriptive language.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and
I
like
would say.
things that
agree.
aren't even necessarily related to what she's talking about, like the like metaphors used are really interesting, and like how does she come up with that shit? Like, but it works. It works.
Yeah. She's a great writer. There's no doubt about that. She's definitely a great writer. Like I enjoyed reading her writing immensely.
And again, I still stand by. I don't think this is a YA book.
No.
The ending felt YA to me. I don't know. I feel like I don't know. It's in that middle ground. It's in the halfway.
It's in the halfway. I see what you did there.
Hey.
Hey. Yeah. Well, to everyone who read along with us and who's been following along, thank you for joining us and reading this book with us. We would love to hear your thoughts on it. So, in the Discord, on IG, TikTok, whatever, hit us up and let us know how you felt about the book. And yeah, we're excited for the next one. We'll be letting you guys know next week what the final selection is. If you haven't voted yet, follow the link tree in our IG and place your vote. And we'll see you guys for the next one.
Yeah.
The next book club next week, and we'll announce the book.